Okay, the idea today is to try to do all of A Midsummer Night's Dream to get us back on track. We might get close. The setting, as I said before, I had over there on the board, even though we didn't talk about it. We talked about it for maybe a minute. Two main settings. Athens, which refers both to the state, the city, but really more specifically the court of Athens. Though there are a couple of scenes where you have what are called the rustics, okay? Not at the court, they're doing other things. So Athens in the wood outside Athens. Act 1, scenes 1 and 2 are set in Athens, and then everything from there to Act 4, scene 2, I believe it is set in the wood. When you get back to, Act 4, through Act 4, scene 1 is set in the wood, and then from Act 4, scene 2 to the end, we're back in Athens. Okay? The play, as we've talked about briefly, is a romantic comedy. We can leave romantic aside for a moment. The important term is comedy. Because what's a comedy? What does comedy mean?
In the modern sense or in this sense?
Well, good question. In the modern sense or in Shakespeare's day? In the modern sense, what does comedy mean? You have a laugh track. If it's an old, 70s or 80s sitcom in front of a live audience, you've got a big sign above the stage that says applause. That's telling the dummies who don't know when something is funny to laugh or to clap. That's not this kind of comedy. This kind of comedy, do two pyramids. This kind of comedy refers to structure, all right? The first pyramid, this represents tragedy. And these ideas come largely from Aristotle, right? Play begins, you have the climax, and then you have the denouement. Obviously, Aristotle did not use that term. He used modern English translation, the unraveling, okay? Climax, beginning, climax, the unraveling. On this side of the pyramid, you have the complication, you have exposition, the complication. We get introduced to protagonist, antagonist, conflicting parties, all right? Climax, the chief point of emotional tension, okay? This is also where you have, again, another term from Aristotle, where the reversal occurs. Usually, the tragic hero does something that causes his or her downfall, right? And the rest of the play is the repercussions of that action that are made known at that reversal, okay? And then you get to the end of the play. So, part of the complication here is you have a rupture in society. It might be a large rupture, it might be a minor rupture. Something happens to tear apart the fabric of society, okay? Usually an action by the tragic hero. The tragic hero may be completely unaware of that action, however. In other words, sometimes that rupture has actually occurred before the action of the play begins. Oedipus the King, right? In Oedipus the King, what's the actual, how many of you have read Oedipus before? Or heard about it? Okay. 5-minute version. Oedipus is a myth. Sophocles does not invent Oedipus. He's taking an old myth and reworks it in the mid-5th century. Oedipus, also pronounced Oedipus if you're British. Oedipus's parents, his father Elias, his mother Jocasta, she was pregnant and a prophecy came to them. The prophecy was, the one in your womb will kill you, Laius, the father, and marry you, Jocasta, the mother, and have children by you and bring to light a brood that should never see the light of day. Okay? They considered that for a moment and said, no, not going to happen. So, what they do in good ancient Greek fashion, still practiced today in parts of the world, literally, I'm not kidding, I'm not exaggerating. The child is delivered, is born, and then is placed on Mount Kithaeron, which is the mountain near the town, near Thebes, to die. Okay? Child gets picked up by somebody else. We don't know any of this at the beginning of the play. Child gets picked up by somebody else, taken back to that person's town, is raised by the king and queen of that town. That town is Corinth, by the way. King and queen are Polybus and Merope, raised as their own. Later on, when he's a young adult, there's a party. A drunk says in the party, "You're a bastard," meaning it literally, not figuratively like it's used today. Oedipus is rather put off by that. He goes to his parents. His parents say, "Don't worry about it. He's a drunk. Don't pay any attention." It eats away at his mind. So he goes to the oracle at Delphi, all right? Famous place. You can go to Delphi today. And the oracle at Delphi supposedly had a stone that had written on the stone, in Greek obviously, not in English, 2 words, "Know thyself." Okay? It's a little important later. The oracle at Delphi tells him, "You are fated to kill your father, marry and sleep with your mother, and bring to light a brood that should never see the light of day." He's like, nope, not going to happen. So what does he do? Put yourself in his shoes. What do? You leave. You run away from home, which is exactly what he does. And when he runs away from home, he meets a man at a crossroads. The man is in a chariot, essentially, a wagon. He's got armed men, and Oedipus is going this way, and the man's coming this way, and neither of them say, "Excuse me," and step off to the side. They come to blows. All but one of the other men are killed. Oedipus keeps going on his way. He comes to the city of Thebes. And what is outside the city of Thebes? Anybody know? The Sphinx. And the Sphinx has a riddle. What's the riddle of the Sphinx? What goes on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs in the afternoon, and 3 legs at night? See, the Sphinx had arrived at some point after the man who was on the crossroads had left Thebes, the man that Oedipus intercepted, and blocked entry and exit from Thebes. The city was essentially under siege. Every night, someone had to attempt to answer the riddle of the Sphinx. And if they couldn't, they were eaten. And if no one offered to, then someone had to be given as tribute to the Sphinx. Oedipus gets in there and goes, "Well, that's easy. A man. A baby crawls on 4 legs. A man as an adult walks on 2 legs. And when you get old, you walk with a cane. 3 legs. And the Sphinx goes, damn, and disappears. Oedipus goes in, he's hailed as king. And guess what? Because he solved the riddle of the Sphinx, and the previous king is missing / dead, what does he get? The queen, who we come to find out at the point of climax, reversal, part of this, another term from Aristotle, recognition. The tragic protagonist has got to come to recognize himself or herself and what they've done. And it's at this point in the play when Oedipus goes, "Oh my God." Why? Because the play begins back here. Okay. Everything that I've said thus far is essentially before the play opens. It gets delivered in background information. Oedipus is speaking to his wife, he's speaking to his uncle, etc. Okay? He has this recognition. He now knows I'm the one who killed Laius, the previous king, who, unbeknownst to him, was his father. And when the messenger, when the guy who took him from the mountain comes in to tell Oedipus, oh, you're king of Corinth now. Your parents, Merope and Polybus, the king, queen and king, are dead. And he's like, then the prophecy must be false. He's like, what prophecy? Oh, there's prophecy that said blah, blah, blah. He goes, oh, you don't know? Polybus and Merope weren't really your parents. You were adopted. How do you know that? Because I gave you to them. Eyes are wide open. More importantly, eyes of his mind are wide open. He's been telling everybody else how blind they are all through the play, and so he blinds himself so that he will be physically blind because he was spiritually blind before. Now he's spiritually awake but physically blind. He comes to know himself really better than most people want to. You could go straight from this play to thing I've just finished teaching in my intro to lit course, Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Minister's Black Veil, which is about coming to self-knowledge, hidden sin kind of a thing, all right? So, all that is to, the rupture is, when the plague begins, Thebes is under a plague. And the god, through the Oracle of Delphi, says, you have to rid the city of the plague. Okay, how do we do that? Find the previous king's murderer. And Oedipus says, I'll do it. And if I don't do it, let all these curses that I utter on his head fall on me. Great example of dramatic irony. The play is just rife with them. Every page just drips with them. Okay? Which is why Aristotle used that as the classic example of tragedy. Okay? Notice, what problem did Oedipus have that he was unaware of? Or what did he lack that could have kept him from fulfilling the prophecy?
Knowledge that he was adopted.
Bingo. He acted on insufficient information. My definition of a tragic hero is when someone is forced to take an action but doesn't have all the necessary information upon which to make a decision. Okay? Now here's the interesting thing. So that's a tragedy. A comedy begins largely the same way. But notice now the pyramid is inverted. Why? You have a rupture that begins. Where does that rupture begin in this play?
The beginning.
Where? In the beginning. Give me who between whom?
The king and Helena?
No.
Titania and Oberon?
Okay, I mean we see that rupture later after in what, Act 1, Scene 3? I think it is.
Then Helen and her dad.
Louder?
Helena and her dad.
Not Helena, Hermia.
Hermia.
Hermia and her father, Aegeus. Okay? And even then, we see it start to spread a little bit. Because it spreads from Hermia and her father to Duke Theseus and his fiancée, Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons. And I'm going to point out a little specific part of one line that gives you that hint. All right? Because what are we told when the play opens? When are Hippolyta and Theseus getting married? 4 days. Okay? Aegeus comes in with his daughter, with Lysander and Demetrius, Lynn, and we're going to talk about this in just a moment. And they talk a bit, and what does Theseus pronounce? When is that problem going to be solved? The problem of Hermia and her father and who she's going to marry in 4 days. The day of his wedding will be the day that Hermia must either accept her father's will and marry Demetrius. Or, two other options are going to be given. One, take the livery of a nun, become a nun. Not a Christian nun. This is 1500 BC. Okay? Or, what's the third option? Die. So, yay, we're getting married. And we're going to have a public execution. Yay, we're getting married and we're going to force this young girl into forced virginity the rest of her life. Because he's going to talk about that. Or we're going to force her to marry somebody she doesn't want to marry. You don't really get more of a rupture than that. Here's the difference between a tragedy and a comedy. Where the comedy reaches its climax, its turning point. At that point, every comedy can become a tragedy. If that rupture is not replaced, is not resolved, is not fixed, flip the pyramid, and what follows? Death and destruction. If those four lovers do not get resolved in the wood, what does the play become? Romeo and Juliet, Lancelot and Guinevere, Tristan and Isolde. Pick any famous love story from Western literature, and they all involve what? All the real ones. Death. The Liebestod, the love, death. Dido and Aeneas, all the greats, okay? So, go back to the beginning of the play. And then, by this point, the conclusion of the play, what do you have? Everyone's happy. Well, with Shakespeare, there's always one person who isn't. Always in Shakespeare's comedies. Why? Shakespeare doesn't write fantasy. Shakespeare realizes it doesn't always end up happily ever after for everyone. We could jump to the very end. It's pretty clear. Aegeus, yes, Lord, my daughter may marry the one she wants to, not the one I want her to, but he's not necessarily thrilled with it. Okay? So, the setting, Athens. Theseus is the duke. Anybody know anything about Theseus? Greek mythology? Ship. He slew the Minotaur. Okay. Had lots of affairs. Affair is a nice word. There's other words that could be used. Rape is one. Okay. Seduced a lot of women, which is going to be alluded to. It's alluded to by the king and queen of the fairies. He is going to go on about Theseus, because Titania kind of has a thing for Theseus. And then she is going to go on about Hippolyta, because Oberon kind of has a thing for Hippolyta. Who's Hippolyta? Anybody know? Queen of the Amazons. What can you tell me about the Amazons? Women warriors. How serious were they about their, for lack of a better word, warriorship? Warrior-mongering, whatever. Soldiery. What did they do to prove, to demonstrate they were serious about being Amazons? If they were right-handed, so they drew the bow, the string, back with their right hand, so they would fire like this, they cut off their left breast, so that string wouldn't hit it when they let go. If they were left-handed, it would be the right breast. Get some pretty doggone determination, determined women, all right? Also, they ruled themselves. Men were slaves for them. So take Greek society, and turn it on its head. Now, opening of the play. Took way too long. So you have all the characters mentioned, and Shakespeare does this in all the plays. You have the dramatis personae. Try to keep the lovers straight. Okay? Hermia, daughter of Aegeus, in love with Lysander. Lysander in love with Hermia. Demetrius in love with Hermia and favored by Aegeus. And it should say there, I think, loved by Helena. Even though it has just beneath that, Helena in love with Demetrius. Okay? There's a reason why Helena is in love with Demetrius. And then you have Oberon, king of the fairies, Titania, queen of the fairies, Puck, or Robin Goodfellow, one of Shakespeare's all-time greatest creations, because everybody loves Puck, though Shakespeare doesn't create him. The character of the Puck, sometimes spelled P-U-C-K, sometimes spelled P-U-K, or P-U-K-A, or P-O-O-K, is ancient. This is Indo-European. We see this character in Indian literature. We see this character in Slavic literatures. Trickster. In Germanic, he's German myth, Marvel, Loki. Okay? I always have to say Marvel now. It's the only way people know anything about Germanic myth. And it is so utterly up. So, the play opens. Okay? Theseus, Hippolyta, Philostrate, and others. In other words, the Duke and soon-to-be wife of the Duke, followed by their train. And Theseus opens first. Now, fair Hippolyta, our nuptial hour draws on apace. That is, moment by moment, hour by hour. Apace means kind of slowly. It's not running. 4 happy days bring in another moon. They'll get married at the new moon. But oh, methinks how slow this old moon wanes. What is Theseus telling us there?
It'll be a long 4 days.
He can't wait. He's anxious. She lingers my desires, like to a stepdame or a dowager, long withering out a young man's revenue. That is, spending out. Okay? Notice, a stepdame or dowager. These are referring to women probably whose husbands, who they married when they were young, died, and is doing what? Spending out that husband's wealth or inheritance. Okay? Hippolyta. 4 days will quickly steep themselves in night. What kind of verb is steep? Tea. It's the only way we use it. So what do you do when you make tea? You take those leaves, you put them in water, right? What color does the water become? Dark. It doesn't, you don't put it in black water and it turns clear. Okay? It becomes dark. Notice, 4 days, daytime, will do what? They will quickly be turned into night. 4 nights will quickly, and we have the first use of the word, dream away the time. In other words, the next 4 days and nights are going to seem like a dream. Shakespeare's preparing us. What's the title of the play? A Midsummer Night's Dream. He often does this with the comedies. They're not real. They're insubstantial. They are remember the other day when I had accidents and substance written down up here? They are like the accidents, the mere appearance of something. And by the way, Shakespeare absolutely loves A-N-C-E, the theme of appearance versus reality. He also loves the theme of time and its passages. It's an old Al Stewart song, Time Passages. Now, Stewart or Cat Stevens, one of the two. So, she lingers my desire, etc. 4 nights will quickly dream away the time, and then the moon, like to a silver bow, now bent in heaven, shall behold the night of our solemnities. What does the night of our solemnities mean? Our marriage. That could refer to the consummation, intercourse. It could also mean the whole wedding ceremony and the party that comes afterwards. Okay? So Theseus tells Philostrate, Philostrate, I don't care how you pronounce this guy's name, go, stir up the Athenian youth. Why? So that we can have revels on our marriage night. Jugglers, whatever. Sword swallowers, fire, flame, out of your mouth throwers, etc. Okay? So he leaves. And he tells Hippolyta, line 16, Hippolyta, I wooed thee with my sword and won thy love, doing thee injuries. So one person got a look on her face like, what? What does that mean? I wooed thee with my sword. He beat her in battle. She is a spoil of war. And what did he do? And won thy love, doing thee injuries. Now, maybe it's just her wounded pride, beaten by a man. Could be. I kind of think it's probably a little more than that. So he goes on, but I will wed thee in another key, with pomp, with triumph, and with reveling. It's almost like he's saying, we'll take the handcuffs off, and you'll have freedom of movement, and you can dance with me, and etc. Okay? So, that little part has ended. New people enter the stage, okay? And do what? They bring the complication. They bring the conflict. Aegeus, happy be Theseus, our renowned duke. Theseus, thanks, Aegeus. What's news? What's up with you? Full of vexation come I with complaint against my child, my daughter, Hermia. Stand forth, Demetrius. Wait, I thought the problem was with Hermia. Why is he telling Demetrius to stand forth? This man hath my consent to marry her. Lysander, get you up here. And my gracious Duke, this man hath bewitched the bosom of my child. He's bewitched her, meaning he's cast a spell. Not literally. What do we describe the process of meeting someone and learning that one loves that person? What do we describe that process as?
Charm, charisma.
Well, maybe falling in love. Why do you fall in love? Because it's not rational. You're not on your 2 feet. You become weak, powerless to love, not to the other person. It's to love, personified. Okay? So, Demetrius has my approval to marry her. But Lysander has tricked her into loving him. Okay? He has, thou Lysander, thou hast given her rhymes and interchanged love tokens with my child. How dare he? How dare he try to woo a woman by giving her poems? That's what that means, rhymes. And what else? And interchanged love tokens. Notice it doesn't say, and given her love tokens. Why interchanged? She gave him something too. And if you, I shouldn't go there. But what the hell? If you go to the Globe, Shakespeare's Globe in London, I've seen this play performed there, I don't know, probably a half dozen times. First time was in 2004. It was fantastic. It's one of the best performances of any plays I've ever seen. The last time was probably 2013. And by then, the director, change of directors, etc., gone ape, you know what, crazy over let's try to tease out any kind of sexual innuendo we can so that it was implied. The exchanging of love tokens was they had sex. There's no indication of that in the play. Okay? Same thing, by the way, happens with Hamlet. Hamlet, we'll see, it's pretty clear within the course of the play. Hamlet and Ophelia haven't had intercourse. Watch the Kenneth Branagh version, and they dirty the sheets. I mean, it's pretty graphic. Well, don't watch the Kenneth Branagh version.
No.
Anyways, and I don't even remember and don't want to remember the Mel Gibson one because there's all kind of incestuous stuff implied there between Hamlet and Gertrude, Glenn Close's character. Thou hast by moonlight at her window sung with feigning voice verses of feigning love, kind of like, Romeo outside Juliet's window, and stolen the impression of her fantasy with bracelets of thy hair, rings, God's conceits. The impression of her fantasy. It's like he's suggesting you have stolen her mind. You have impressed on her, what's her fantasy? Fantasy is an old word for modern English imagination. You've printed an image on her imagination. What's the image? Lover. To quote Jerry Maguire, you complete me. That kind of thing. Okay? Fantasy, by the way, is going to be a very important term throughout the play. So he's given her all kinds of things. Messengers of strong prevailment in unhardened youth. In other words, she's just a young, silly girl, impressionable, easily swayed. With cunning hast thou filched my daughter's heart. There's a reason why J.K. Rowling names the school, janitor, not groundskeeper, but the guy in charge of the building, Filch, in the Harry Potter novels. Why? Because he steals from students. He has done what? Filched, stolen her heart. Turned her obedience, now it starts to get darker, which is due to me, to stubborn harshness. Another theme in Shakespeare, fathers and daughters. He had two. They're the ones who lived. His son died. Okay? In Shakespeare's day, what did the father have the authority to do? To approve or not approve getting married. He approved Susanna's marriage. She married a doctor. I don't remember anything about Judith. Nobody ever talks about poor Judith. Okay? He's turned her obedience to harshness. And my gracious Duke, be it so she will not hear before your grace consent to marry with Demetrius, I beg the ancient privilege of Athens. And what is that ancient privilege? So notice the play begins on this high note. We're going to have a wedding. And we're going to have fun. It'll be like a carnival. And now, if she doesn't consent to marry the man I want her to marry, what? She must die. It's not he personally is going to kill her. The state will do it. It'll be nice and, sanitary that way. Sterile. As she is mine, I may dispose of her. Okay, now I mentioned Shakespeare's period, but this is set when? Ancient Greece. I mean, mythological Greece. And even in ancient Greece, say the time of Sophocles, when he's writing Oedipus plays, 5th century, women had no rights whatsoever. Women were things to be owned, period. That's it, all right? I can do with her what I want. Which shall be either, here's what I want. She either marries Demetrius or she dies. Notice, he's not giving a third option. according to our law, immediately provided. Put yourself in Theseus' shoes. Really? 4 days to my wedding, and you bring this to me publicly? Hermia, what say you? Be advised, fair maid, to you your father should be as a god. Now, some people want to read that as Shakespeare parroting the late Elizabethan, patriarchal structures of his day. He's not. That's not Shakespeare saying that. That is Theseus in 1000 or 1200 BC saying that. Where, from what we know from that time period, and the only way we know it is largely through Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey, because nothing else survives other than myth. That's exactly what was believed at the time. Okay? One that composed your beauties, yea, and one to whom you are, but as a form in wax, by him imprinted. They didn't understand sperm and ovum and, human biology, so to speak. But he's saying, your father imprinted you in your mother. We've heard language similar to that previously. Because what did Lysander do? He imprinted an image on her imagination. Well, your father imprinted your physical image. And it's probably an indication that if you're casting the play, you should try to find an actress who looks similar to the character playing Aegeus. Okay? And within his power to leave the figure or disfigure it. To break it. Why? Does this cup tell me what it should look like? Hell no, I didn't make this cup. But I could bring in a bookcase that I've made. As I'm making the bookcase, does the wood say, no, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to have adjustable shelves. I want to be fixed shelves. No. Why? I'm the one making it. He is as a God. God doesn't ask, the potter doesn't ask the clay, what do you want to be today? Do you want to be an ashtray? You want to be a cup? You want to be a vase? Demetrius is a worthy gentleman. Why don't you want to marry Demetrius? And she says, so is Lysander. Does she disagree? Nope. In him, yes, you're right. Lysander is a worthy gentleman. But in this kind, wanting your father's voice. But means except. He wants, he lacks your father's voice, your father's approval. The other must be held the worthier. So how do you determine one's worth? Here, it's because Aegeus says, I wanted to marry him. Notice Theseus is saying, in and of themselves, Lysander and Demetrius, they're pretty much the same. Okay? Hermia, I would my father looked but with my eyes. Now, that can be really loaded language. How does she look? Leave Demetrius aside for a moment. How does she look at Lysander? Where are we told love is? In the eye of the beholder. She looks at Lysander, she sees love. What has she just said? I would that my father looked but with my eyes. I would that my father looked at Lysander in what? If he looks with her eyes, loves Lysander. A lot of people want to say, well, there's some homoerotic tension going on here. Maybe. I don't think so. I'm kind of, Sarah went, what? Yeah, that's kind of where I am. Theseus, no. Your eyes must with his judgment look. Judgment means what? Remember, I had written over here, Athens, the wood. Athens stands for culture, civilization, law, order, reason, rationality, logic. The wood stands for chaos, lack of civilization, misrule, illogic, irrationality, passion. Okay? Your eyes must with his judgment look. I do entreat your grace to pardon me. Why? Because she's going to speak her mind. Here's what she says. And notice, we are not going to get close, probably to finishing Act 1, the way I'm going. I know not by what power I am made bold, nor how it may concern my modesty in such a presence here to plead my thoughts, but I beseech your grace that I may know what's going to happen if I don't agree with my father. Notice, I don't know what's making me so bold to do this. It's like the God or gods are speaking through me. Anybody know what the word enthusiasm literally means? Or to be enthused about something?
Is the word theos in there somewhere?
Yes, it is. This means inside, this, theos, or deus, in Godded. To be enthused means to be breathed into by the God or gods. Right? So if somebody's really enthusiastic, you can't really quell that enthusiasm, can you? They just, She's implying something speaking through me. Okay? So what can happen? Theseus. To die the death or to abjure forever the society of men. He's just introduced another option. He doesn't say, well, you heard your father. You don't marry him, you die. He's giving a more gentle option. So, he says, therefore, fair Hermia, question your desires. Know of your youth, examine well your blood. Whether if you yield not to your father's choice, you can endure the livery of a nun, for I to be in steady cloister, mewed to live a barren sister all your life, chanting faint hymns to the cold, fruitless moon. Yea, Diana, we love Diana, the goddess of virginity. Okay, notice what he says. Question your desires. Examine your blood. What's he saying? Can you be chaste the entire rest of your life? Can you never have sex? The implication is she is chaste now. She's virginal now. Thrice blessed they that master so their blood. Those that can be virgin all their lives, they're thrice blessed. To undergo such maiden pilgrimage. But earthlier happy is the rose distilled. What does it mean to distill a rose? You got this beautiful rosebud, just starts to open up. How do you distill it? You got to take it apart. You have to crush it. You have to open it. All kinds of sexual imagery, by the way. And you squeeze out its essence. Okay? Earthlier happy is the rose distilled than that which withering on the virgin thorn grows, lives, and dies in single blessedness. The rose distilled also implies, what does the rose distilled do? It gives rise to other roses. It recreates itself. Okay? Whereas the one that doesn't dies in single blessedness. We could jump to the sonnets and read the first 20 sonnets, which are all about the speaker telling a young man, go have children. Why? Because you are so drop dead gorgeous, you owe the world to reproduce and put more beautiful people around. Okay? Hermia. Yep, I'll take that option. I'm not going to marry him. So will I grow, so live, so die, my Lord, ere I will yield my virgin, not virgin, that's not a word, virgin patent up unto his lordship, whose unwished yoke my soul consents not to give sovereignty. Notice, my soul. It's almost like she says, almost like, I'm not saying she does. He can take my body, but he can't get what's inside. Theseus, no, you don't have to answer yet. Tell you what, you can tell me by the next new moon. Let's see, when is that? Oh yeah, 4 days. The sealing day betwixt my love and me, for everlasting bond of fellowship. Upon that day, either prepare to die for disobedience to your father's will, or else to wed Demetrius, or on Diana's altar to protest for austerity in single life. Notice, to protest. Come on, Hermia, relent, Demetrius says. Lysander, let her go. Yield thy crazed title. Lysander, you have her father's love, Demetrius. Let me have Hermes. You marry him. Now, that line is an example of verbal wit. Who's it directed to? Should have talked about this. Shakespeare's stage looks like this, okay? So this is all the stage here. The globe is like this. You have 3 levels of seating. And down here, this is called the yard. The yard is where the groundlings stood, okay? They paid a pence, to get in. And they stood during the whole production. The floor of the yard was just dirt, nutshells, all kinds of crap. Literally, including crap. During the plays, people would relieve themselves right where they stood. We know. We've got anecdotes. If the plays weren't good, they wouldn't bring, rotten tomatoes. They just scoop up what's on the ground and throw it at the stage. So, you don't want to put on bad plays. It gave Shakespeare an incentive to do 2 things. He's got to appeal to 2 different audiences. He's got to appeal to this audience, okay? And he's got to appeal to the people sitting up here who pay more. This is largely the middle and upper middle class, to use terminology that was not used at all in that period. The idea of class wasn't introduced until Marx in the 19th century. And then you had this group of people who are the lower class. They are lower on the socioeconomic scale. These are people who work with their hands. In other words, like the people who will put on the play within the play in Midsummer Night's Dream. These are the people like Duke Aegeus, Demetrius, Lysander, Hermia, Helena, etc. Okay? So Shakespeare's got to appeal to the uneducated as well as to the well-educated. So he throws out lots of lines that are meant to get the belly thumping, rip-roaring, laughing, guffawing, like, you have his love, you marry him, let me have Hermia. And the guy's down there going, oh, you hear that? That's gay stuff, Scornful Lysander, Aegeus is not pleased by that language. True, he hath my love. What is mine? My love shall render him, etc., etc. He says, I give everything to Demetrius. So Lysander then addresses not Aegeus, I think he's addressing Theseus. I am, my lord, as well derived as he, meaning I've got as good a bloodline. My heritage is as good as Lysander's, Demetrius's, as well possessed. My love is more than his. In other words, and I really love Hermia. My fortunes every way is fairly ranked, if not with vantage, as Demetrius. My fortunes, it's like Lady Luck smiles on me. It's implied by fortunes. His business acumen. Everything I touch, man, turns to gold. My stock is just rising. If not the same, better than Demetrius. And more than all of this, I am loved of beauteous Hermia. That is, you could throw all this other stuff away. She loves me. Why should not I then prosecute my right? Demetrius, I'll avouch it to his head. That means I will not just swear on my honor. I will fight a duel. I will fight it to the death. Demetrius what? Made love to Nadar's daughter Helena and won her soul. Made love does not mean had intercourse. It means he wooed her the exact same way Lysander wooed Hermia. He sang sweet songs, he wrote her poems, he gave her stuff. And now, Helena what? Her soul is his, Demetrius's. And she, sweet lady, dotes, devoutly dotes in idolatry. Dotes. What does it mean to dote on someone?
Take care of, to shower favors.
Okay. Is it rational? Here it's not. A doting fool means someone who just does everything to try to get someone's favor. In fact, in one of the sonnets, Shakespeare says, and Sonnet 20, it's a very, very famous sonnet, Shakespeare says, when nature created this man that he's told to go out and have children, she initially made you for a woman, but doting on you while creating him, she added something to my purpose, nothing, and thus made you for women's pleasure. In other words, the man he's describing is fairly androgynous, only he has a penis. Okay? He's this is the kind of guy, Shakespeare makes clear, this is the kind of guy who comes into a room and everybody in the room, man or woman, looks and goes, damn, he's good looking. Okay? She dotes on Demetrius, upon this spotted and inconstant man. Spotted means tainted, fouled. Inconstant, unfaithful. Theseus. Yeah, I've heard about that. And I meant to speak to Demetrius about that. Okay? So he says, being full of self-affairs, in other words, I got my wedding to, plan. So he says, Aegeus, come with me, we'll talk. Demetrius, come on. Demetrius is going to get read the riot act. Okay? So we're left with Lysander and Hermia on the stage. And we're told one of Shakespeare's great quotes, line 134, the course of true love never did run smooth. Right? Pick a love story up to Shakespeare's day, after Shakespeare's day, where two people fall in love and everything is just wonderful. It's all smooth. It doesn't happen. Okay? So, they talk a little bit back and forth. Hermia says, oh, it's a cross. Too high to be enthralled, too low. Lysander responds, Hermia, oh, hell to choose love by another's eyes. To choose love according to what somebody else thinks. Okay? So Lysander says, now I'm going to skip Lysander's speech, pick up with Hermia, line 150. If then true lovers have been ever crossed, that is, their way to love has always been blocked in some way, It stands as an edict in destiny. Destiny must want this to happen. Why? To overcome obstacles, so to speak, to prove one's love. It stands as an edict in destiny, then let us teach our trial patience. What's their trial? They're seemingly what is going to be unfulfilled love. She says, let us do what? Let us be patient. Let us patiently endure. Now, has Shakespeare used any quote-unquote religious language? Has he referred to Jesus, Mary, the saints? Nope. But it is a very New Testamental idea here to patiently endure whatever occurs. She says, why? Because it is a customary cross. There we have religious language. Because she means this kind of cross.
Cross to bear.
It's a cross to bear. And it's customary. What does customary mean? We're not the first ones to have to do this. She's saying, we could go back through the history of lovers, and guess what? Cross, 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 cross. They've all had to endure this. As due to love, that is, this cross is as due to love as it is to thoughts and dreams and sighs, wishes and tears, poor fancies, followers. Fancy, imaginations, followers. In other words, thoughts, dreams, sighs, wishes, and tears are the things that result from one's imagination. Why? Because you think, well, when I get to block XYZ, life will be better. And then you get to XYZ, and you find out it's not. You've imagined something to be true, only to find out it isn't. So, Lysander says, here's what we'll do. Tomorrow night, meet me in the woods. Okay? She says, I will. And why does he want her to meet him in the woods? Because I think it is 7. Yeah. 7 leagues from Athens, his aunt lives outside Athens in the woods. She's a dowager. She loves me. I'm her only relative. Go and meet me there, he says. And he says, there I will marry you. And to that place the sharp Athenian law cannot pursue me. We can get married there and live happily ever after. Athens can't touch us. Theseus can't touch us. Your father can't touch us. And my aunt is rich. We'll have everything we need. Of course, they won't be able to come back to Athens. She goes, cool, I'll do it. Okay? Helena comes in. And she and Hermia talk back and forth for a bit. Okay? Lysander leaves. And Hermia tells Helena what she and Lysander are going to do. Complication. This increases the conflicts in the play. Okay? So Hermia and Lysander both leave. Helena is alone on the stage. And she speaks. What is that speech called?
Soliloquy.
When a character is alone on the stage speaking, you have a soliloquy. Okay? What does the soliloquy express? One's thoughts. The innermost, deepmost thoughts of the character. So when that character delivers a soliloquy, everything the character says is true. Okay? Little side note, we'll talk about it again when we get there. Hamlet's to be or not to be speech, it is not a soliloquy. Everybody treats it as it is. Bevington, in his introduction, refers to it as a soliloquy. It's not a soliloquy. How do we know?
Ophelia's in the room.
Because Ophelia is on the stage. Ophelia has not left the stage. In a soliloquy, none of the other characters in the play hear what that actor says. And yet, after that speech by Hamlet, the next thing we hear are the king and Polonius talking, and they heard every word. And the king says, madness is not what plagues Hamlet. It's not a soliloquy. So if it's not a soliloquy, it doesn't express Hamlet's innermost being. So the greatest speech about suicide, the greatest soliloquy about suicide isn't one. He has an earlier soliloquy that is about suicide that gets seldom discussed. All right? So, what does Helena say? Through Athens I am thought as fair as she. But what of that? Most people in Athens think I'm as beautiful as Hermia is. Demetrius thinks not so. It doesn't matter if everybody else thinks that. Okay? He will not know what all but he do know. He will not know. Not he does not know. What's the difference between does and will?
One is intentional.
Will is volition. She's suggesting he chooses not to know that. And as he errs, an error is a willful wrong. It's not a mistake. As he errs, doting on Hermia's eyes, so I admiring of his qualities. That is, I err just like he does on his qualities. Things base and vile holding no quantity, love can transpose to form and dignity. What does that mean? Things base and vile holding no quantity. Quantity there can mean shape, it can mean form, it can mean no real identifiability, that is, you can't really tell what it is. Love can do what to something like that? It can transform it. It can make it have a form, and it can make it dignified. So what kind of things that have no quantity can love turn into a form? If it has no quantity, if it has no form or shape, what does it have?
Nothing.
Nothing.
It's insubstantial.
It's insubstantial. It's nothing. We're going to hear a speech by Theseus in Act 5, where he's going to talk about what the imagination does to things that are nothing. The imagination gives to airy nothing, he's going to say, form and shape. So, love can take something that isn't real and give it a form and a dignity. Love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind. And therefore is winged Cupid painted blind. How can love look not with the eyes, but with the mind? What is Helena saying about love? Is love only attracted to this? No. Shakespeare's sonnet 116. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Marriage of true minds. Okay? Not bodies. So we have that idea already in this play, 1595 or so. Nor hath love's mind of any judgment taste, wings and no eyes, figure and heedy haste. Therefore love is said to be a child, because in choice he is so oft beguiled. In choice, he's He got her tricked. So what does she tell us she's going to do? I'm going to follow Hermia and Lysander and go into the woods, but I'm going to kill Demetrius. Because Demetrius, once he knows what they're doing, he will then go into the woods. And so she will follow Demetrius. Act 1, Scene 2. We get introduced to what are called the rustics, the rude mechanicals. I've never fully understood that term. Or, I hate this one, the clowns. Because clown has a connotation in our popular consciousness. These are the guys in the red funny shoes and the big nose and the scary face paint, you know. Rustics, rude mechanicals, or clowns. These are tradesmen. These are craftsmen. These are men who work with their hands. You've got a tailor, you've got a tinker, you've got a carpenter, okay? Enter Quince, the carpenter, Snug, the joiner. Joiner is the person who brings wood together into various joints. Bottom, the weaver. Flute, the bellows mender. Snout, the tinker. And Starveling, the tailor. Every one of these jobs requires what on the part of the person doing the job? Can you be an idiot and be a tailor? No. It requires skill and a lot of brain knowledge, because you have to be able to measure for all of these. Okay? You got to be smart. What kind of smarts is it, though? It's not book learning smarts. It's practical smarts. Okay? So, we're not going to talk about the scene other than this is among the group of people that Philostrate has riled up to do something to celebrate Theseus's and Hippolyta's upcoming wedding. These guys are going to put on a play. Notice, what kind of knowledge do they say they had? They've got practical knowledge. Give, the joiner a couple pieces of wood, he can build something with it. Dealing with words and the nuances of words and how to enunciate and pronounce words, that's not their stock in trade. Okay? So, we're told by Quince, the leader of the group, line 11, that their play is called The Most Lamentable Comedy and Most Cruel Death of Pyramus and Thisbe. Pyramus and Thisbe, another ancient Greek myth. Romeo and Juliet is essentially who they are. They're on the wrong sides, wrong families, they love each other, and they each die for the other in the classic myth. Okay? So this is a lamentable comedy. Now, this is using comedy in the modern sense. Funny, rip-roaring laughter, but it's lamentable. Is this some great paradox? No, it's a malapropism. He doesn't know what he's saying. Okay? So, we hear the parts announced. Normally I go through all these. And they get announced. What one character keeps chiming in because he wants to do more than one part? Bottom. Bottom the Weaver. One of Shakespeare's all-time great comedic characters. Okay? You really need somebody who has great comedic timing to pull this play off. And somebody who just really loves hamming it up. I've seen some really, really good productions of this, and I've seen some really poor ones. So, Bottom wants to do them all, but he can't. Act 2, Scene 1, 15 minutes. Enter a fairy at one door and Robin Goodfellow, or Puck, at another. Notice location, a wood near Athens. So we're not in Kansas anymore. And the fairy comes in, and the fairy speaks how? In verse, in poetry. And the fairy goes on, and Puck then speaks. The king doth keep his revels here tonight. Take heed, the queen come not within his sight. For Oberon is passing fell in wrath, because that she as her attendant hath a lovely boy stolen from an Indian king. What has Puck just done? Exposition, background information. We're being told why new leaders of a new society, or a different society, okay, Theseus and Hippolyta are the leaders of the Athenian society. Now we have the leaders of the fairy society. And the king and queen are not getting along. Why? She's taken a boy that the king wants to have in his train of henchmen, or followers. She never had so sweet a changeling. What's a changeling? It's a word still used today, but not in its original meaning. A child switched birth. This is an old idea. Old English texts talk about this. Say you're the happy couple, and you deliver a child, and the child's, we'll put it in a modern context, child's in the hospital, it's in the, nursery. A couple days later, you go to get the child, and you notice something's immediately off. And the child grows for a few years, and the child's just a rotten little dirty SOB. I mean, like, Satan incarnate. Well, one way to deal with that problem is go, changeling, that's not my child. Somebody came and took my child and replaced my child, who we all know is good and true and beautiful and wonderful and well respectful, and replaced it with this little bastard. It was a way of dealing with children who don't obey, okay? The idea was that the fairies, elves, would come and take a human child back to the other world, their world, and replace it with one of theirs. Why? Because the fairies used, according to medieval stories, this is widely told, the fairies used humans for two purposes. One, slaves, two, sex. They were captured for those two reasons. Sometimes that's one and the same reason, okay? Oberon wants the child. She wants the child. But she, line 26, perforce withholds the loved boy, crowns him with flowers, makes him all her joy. And now they never meet in grove or green by fountain clear or spangled starlight sheen, but they do square, and all their elves for fear creep into acorn cups and hide them there. This, by the way, is the first time in literature that elves are referred to as little teeny tiny things. Prior to Shakespeare, elves are like us. Fairies are like us, full-bodied. It's only in Shakespeare, it's first with Shakespeare, that they can sit in the top of an acorn, okay? So what have we just been told? What do they do when they come upon each other in the wood? They square like boxers, okay? They fight. And the fairy says, are you Puck? Puck goes on and says, yes, he is, okay? And Puck tells us everything he likes to do, which is trickstery, pulls jokes on humans, etc., etc. Enters Oberon from one door. Okay, this is the stage. This is in your introduction, the tiring house. This is where they exit. There's a door, usually two doors. Sometimes there are threes. They go in and out through both doors. This is where actors, when they leave a scene, if they have to play another role, they quickly do a costume change and then come back out. So Oberon and his train come out one door, Titania and her train come out another door. And we hear, ill met by moonlight, proud Titania. What? Jealous Oberon? Fairy skip hence, I have forsworn his bed and company. That tells us right there. That great chain of being, ruptured. Tarry, rash, wanton. Am not I thy Lord? Look at line 63. Wanton, headstrong creature. That is one Renaissance meaning of the word wanton. It has another. Anybody guess what it is? Sarah kind of rolled her eyes. Slut. Prostitute. Whore. Now, there's a difference, obviously, between slut, prostitute, and whore. Prostitute is one who sells sex for money. Sluts and whores don't necessarily. Okay? I'm just using those terms vaguely. I'm not, He's just called his wife a whore, according to one meaning. All right. Is she a headstrong creature? Yes, obviously. Headstrong means what? Obstinate. What else? Full of yourself. What did you think? Stubborn. Okay. Has she been stubborn? According to his thinking, yes, because she won't turn over the little boy. Has he been stubborn? According to her thinking, yes, because he keeps demanding the little boy. Am not I thy Lord? Have we heard any language similar to that previously? Am not I thy father? Shouldn't you do what I... Then I must be thy lady. And she probably, if I were directing this, she would kind of do a little curtsy to him. But I know when thou hast stolen away from fairyland, and in the shape of corn, sat all day playing on pipes of corn. And what does she immediately do? Oh, you're my husband. That's true. Yeah, so I must be your wife, huh? And yet I know when I can't find you in fairyland, you're off on earth in the form of Corin, a farmer, playing your pipes for Phillida, a farmer's daughter. Not incest. Okay, I shouldn't have said a farmer. Corin, a hayseed who works on the farm, trying to entice the farmer's daughter. The names Corin and Phillida were names used frequently in pastoral poetry. Pastoral poetry set out in the woods, set out in the fields, all about, it's kind of the, take the wildest environmentalist and put them on steroids and, cocaine. All we need is love and to live out in the world, and the world will provide all of our needs. Okay? So why is she saying he does this? He's cheating on her. You call me a hooker or whore? We don't have a good equivalent of that for men, right?
Man whore?
Thank you for coining that. Gigolo, that's the closest you can get, okay? Rake, that's a good one, but nobody uses that anymore. That used to be used for John Donne, poet of the 17th century. Not really cur. Oh, there is another one. Cad. Cad could work. But that cad doesn't necessarily imply the sleeping with anything that moves. So, she says, why are you here? I knew you were in India. Oh, I know why you're here. The bouncing Amazon. Why'd you chuckle?
So she's referring to the Amazonian women, and he's gonna go into the world and do all that.
I mean, do the Amazonian women bounce around on their legs?
Yeah.
Or is it something else bouncing about their bodies? I've never understood that. Like, the only way I can read that is sexually referring to their bodies. Okay? Your buskined mistress and your warrior love. I know why you're here right now. Because Hippolyta's here. He goes, for shame. I could channel my Gomer Pyle. Thus for shame, glance at my credit with Hippolyta. My faith, my belief, that's what credit means. Knowing I know thy love to Theseus. Didst not thou lead him through the glimmering night from Perigonia, whom he ravished? What's another word for ravished? Raped. And make him with fair Aglis break his faith with Ariadne and Antiopa, two other women that he also had. These are the forgeries of jealousy. You're not really jealous of that. Okay? And she gives this big long speech that tells us what is the effect of their discord.
Like the seasons are all out of whack.
The world is out of whack. Everything beneath them on the great chain of being, it's all screwed up. Because fairies are a little bit above us. They're not angels, they're beneath angels. Okay? But they're above us. And so she goes on and describes all, the forward mist, the colds, the heats, the dying crops, the stillborn, etc. Oberon. Line 118. Amend it then. You see all the problems. Fix it. It's in your power. Why should Titania look at the language? It's the same language Hermia and Lysander used, talking about love. Why should Titania cross her Oberon? Cross meaning stand in my way and, I love Shakespeare's use of language here, become a cross for me. I just want the boy. Just give. She says, no. The fairyland buys not the child of me. I wouldn't give him for the whole kingdom. Why? His mother was a votress of my order. She kind of worshipped me. I'm doing it for her. Okay? So, how long are you going to stay here? Till after Theseus' wedding day. Give me the boy, and I'll go with you. When she says, come on, let's go in peace. Not for thy fairy kingdom. So Titania and her clan leaves. Oberon says, thou shalt not from this grove till I torment thee for this injury. Puck comes in, and Oberon sets the plot. What's he going to do? What does he send Puck off to get? A flower. Flower's called love and idleness. Anybody know its modern word? What we call this flower? I don't think there's a footnote. It's a pansy. Go get that flower, bring it to me, because the juice from that flower, when it's squeezed onto someone's eyes, he tells us, will make, when that person awakes, the first thing they see, they will fall madly, head over heels in love with. Be it on lion, bear, this is page 150, line 179 or so. On lion, bear, or wolf, or bull, on meddling monkey, or busy ape, she shall pursue it with the soul of love. And before I take this charm off of her eyes, I'll get the boy from her. Notice, he is going to take it off. He is going to have her see as she does see, or as she should see. Okay? So Oberon hears a noise, and he says, but who comes here? And you can almost go, I am invisible. And he does the Obi-Wan hand signal. The production, we've only got a minute. The production my wife and I saw in 2002, I think it was 2002. They had all the same actors play the humans and the fairies. It was a fairly small group. So the guy who played Duke Theseus played Oberon. Hippolyta was played by the same woman who played Titania, thank you. I don't know what's behind. And they had what looked like pajamas. Striped pajamas, like prison suits outfit. And the only way you knew when they went from being human to fairy is they had sewn into the pajamas like the little Christmas lights, fairy lights, so to speak. And they had a button in their palm, press the button, and the lights light up. And they were on the inside, so they kind of shone through the clothing. It's very, very cool, because there are times when one character will speak, and then the next speech is by the same actor as a different, and every now and then the stupid lights wouldn't go on because you'd see him sitting there pressing on it, okay? Okay, we are so far behind. So, we'll finish Midsummer Night's Dream on Thursday. Sorry. There's a quiz up. It's due Thursday night, I believe it is. It's easy. I think one or two of you, well, I think it's easy. One or two of you have already taken it. Just make sure it's extra credits, 15 points possible.